100 miles.
100 miles.
What was that like?
Well, it definitely had some ups.
I'm feeling super good about Dan's run.
He came in feeling really good.
And it had some downs.
So we got a bit of a problem. We have no idea how Dan is doing. We don't even know if he's still alive, technically.
But honestly, I just don't think any of us knew what this journey had in store for us. Custer, a small town nestled in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Home to a myriad of shops and restaurants and a stone's throw away from Mount Rushmore. This idyllic town is a great vacation spot for any family. But me and the boys weren't there for sightseeing, because Custer's home to the Lean Horse 100-mile ultra marathon, and we were there to take it on.
My name's Alan McKee.
I'm Tim Gallenbeck.
I'm Devin Volker. I'm one of Dan's very long-term friends. We met back in elementary school.
I met Dan, aka Night Fox, at Ninja U in Cedar Falls.
I met Dan at Ninja U when I was living in Cedar Falls, developed a relationship, got into ninjas together, done a little bit of running together, but I'm not much of a runner. But my job here on this trip is to capture everything I can. Into videography, digital marketing, and making video, storytelling, filmmaking, and my job is to document this story that we're all on together and that Dan's on, this journey that he's on, and whatever happens to capture that and be able to tell that story.
Did some training together at Ninja initially, and then realized that he's into other things besides Ninja, like running. And after I did Ninja Warrior type stuff, I got into running. That inspired me to start running, and all of a sudden Dan was like, I got a crazy idea. I think I'm gonna do a 100-mile ultra. And I was like, how can I help? What can we do? And I'm lucky enough to be here to help pace and motivate him to the end. And so it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time.
And, I'm here for the medical support side of things. Went off to med school and starting my new position here shortly. So one of the biggest concerns, at least medically for folks, is making sure that runners are keeping on top of their own condition and making sure that they're not running too hard, too fast. We're constantly told to watch out for is folks that, they don't hydrate enough, they don't have enough salt and electrolytes, they push themselves too hard, and they start getting muscle breakdowns, especially in longer races or for folks that haven't exercised recently. For what we're looking for is things like how he's doing mentally. Yes, he's going to be tired by the end of it and at certain checkpoints, but if he starts getting confused about where he's at, what he's doing, that sort of thing, that's kind of a red flag. That'd be one of the things where we'd end up getting him pulled from the race.
100 miles is crazy, man. He talked to me, he's like, hey, I've got this idea. I'm wanting to do a 100-mile ultra marathon. You think you can come with me? I was like, yeah, sure, buddy. Sure, let's do it. And here we are. We're in beautiful South Dakota. It's going to be an amazing time. I think Dan's definitely got it in him to at least finish this race. He's got a goal for the time that he wants to get, and I hope that he can reach that. At the end of the day, we're going to see how it goes. It's going to be awesome. But I really want to see Dan cross that finish line and celebrate at the end.
My name's Dan. I go by Night Fox on social medias. Honestly, I don't remember what made me come across this specific race, but I watch a lot of Nick Bear on YouTube. I think he's a really cool dude. I love what he's all about. And last year he had put out a video where he took on the Leadville 100, and that was his first ever ultra. He had this great team out there, and they shot like a really cool, like kind of documentary type film around him taking on this amazing race. And I was like, wow, I want to do something like that. And here we are now. I've got Alan out here. I've got Devin taking care of the medical side of things. And I've got Tim, who's going to be out here pacing me after the first 50 miles. Honestly, none of us know what we're in store for. It's just going to be crazy. And I can't wait to make these memories with this group of guys and just experience this with them. It's going to be awesome. This summer with all my training, I had trouble with nutrition. And there was a few of those long ones where I cramped really bad. So I learned kind of to push through that. So if that's something that happens during this event, I know like, okay, hey, I just got to make it to that next checkpoint. I've got those guys waiting for me. They're there to help me, to take care of me, get me back going again. But I think I've dialed in the nutritional side of things. We'll have to find out. Right now, I'm just feeling really blessed. The guys that I have out here with me have been great. I've really enjoyed the time we've got to spend together these past couple days and just making memories. And this is something I never thought that I'd be out doing. So honestly, no matter what happens over this next couple days, this trip has meant the world to me. And these guys mean a lot to me, and they know that, and they wouldn't be here for me doing this if they didn't care about me. And that means a lot, that they're here with me through this, no matter if it goes well or if shit hits the fan. These guys are here for me, and that means the world. And so I'm just excited to get there at that starting line tomorrow and see where this adventure takes me. So day of the race, guys and I got up, we packed up our camp and headed into town. We stopped at a little diner to grab some breakfast beforehand, just kind of go over expectations one last time. So we get there, we double check, we triple check everything. I'm at the starting line and I just have so many emotions going through me. You know, I'm fearful, I'm excited, I'm nervous. I'd put a year's worth of planning into this, a year's worth of training and research, and I got these guys together to come out and do this event with me. My family's there, my friends are there, and we're about to take on this journey, all of us together.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
So we're off, and I'm constantly telling myself to slow down. You know, my emotions are high, but this is 100 miles. I've never done anything like this, and I can't just go out in the first 5 miles and blow myself up. A little over 1 mile in. First mile was 10 flat. This mile's a little bit slower. First 5 miles is uphill though, so we're doing good. I'm actually struggling with breathing a little bit just within the first couple miles. And I don't know if it was because that whole first section was uphill or because of the altitude. We were running about a mile higher than what I'm used to. I'm carrying Tim's GoPro. I wanted to have it for like the first 10 to 15 miles. And the thing is just super annoying. I'm like 3 miles in, I can't clip it back onto my vest, and I was like, well, this isn't gonna last. So the plan was to skip the first aid station. I get up there and Tim's recording. He's like, yeah, let's go, Dan. And I'm just handing him the GoPro. I was like, nope, we're done with this. So I skipped that first aid station, other than I filled up one of my water bottles real quick, just to make sure I had enough water on hand to get me to mile 10, which is where the crew was gonna meet up for me for our first crewed aid station.
We just saw Dan go through the first checkpoint. How'd you think he was looking?
He looked good. I think he looked a little warm. I think it's a little hotter than we expected at the start, but
Sun is
he
beating
grabbed a
down.
little extra hydration when we were through there. So
We're just filming. We weren't setting up. Dan told us, hey, I don't really need much help at this checkpoint. He did need to have us fill up some water, so he took a little bit longer, but then he got right back in. So we'll see. Hopefully the sun doesn't, I mean, it's not like it's gonna get worse. It's high noon,
he's
basically.
He's sunscreened up and has plenty of hydration. So as long as he keeps up on his electrolytes and everything else, I think he'll be solid.
So I roll into that second aid station. That next 5 miles had been downhill, so my breathing was getting a little bit better. I find the guys, see where they're set up, and I get in there and I sit down. They've got my food ready, they're grabbing my flasks, they're getting those refilled, and I start to eat the food. They had made ramen for me. The plan was to eat ramen at every aid station. I'm having a hard time getting it down. My body just didn't want to eat it. I don't know if it was the consistency or what. I was only able to eat about half of what they prepared. This was the first aid station where they were crewing, and none of them have ever crewed an event before. None of them had paced an event like this. So everything was new for them. They were just going based off of the research I had done, what I had told them in our pre-race meeting, what I needed, what I expected out of them. So they had some learning to do. But this first aid station went really well. I was ahead of pace to finish before 24 hours. They got me on my way, slathered me up with some more sunblock, and I took off to the next aid station, which was about 5 miles from there.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.
coming into Hill City, that was 15 miles in. I actually came in walking. I had met a lady during that stretch, nice older lady. We walked for a little bit together, and she was telling me it was her 50th 100-mile ultra, which just like blew my mind. It was getting pretty hot, so as I came into that aid station, the guys got some ice on me. I tried eating some more ramen, and I still wasn't able to get it in me, and I was getting really frustrated because this was the plan. This is what I was going to eat the whole race. And while I was doing okay pace-wise and how I was feeling at this point, yeah, we're 15 miles in, I knew that I was going to need this food, this fuel, to help me later on. It wasn't for the now, it was definitely for the later. So I was getting a little worried. I told the guys, hey, next aid station, let's switch to the mashed potatoes. Maybe I'll be able to eat that. So they put that on their list of things I was gonna maybe want. You know, I was gonna get a change of shirt at that next aid station. This was a big one for us too, because we're 15 miles in, and up to race day, the furthest I had ever ran was 20 miles. This next stretch was going to be an 8-mile stretch. Up until now, it had been 5 miles, 5 miles, 5 miles, and now I got to go 8 miles. And that's going to take me to 23 miles, a PR, further than I've ever ran before. So it was getting into some uncharted territory. I left the Hill City aid station, and I got about a mile away, and I just threw up everything. I had nothing left in my stomach. I was really worried at this point. I was still 7 miles away from the next aid station. I didn't have any fuel in my stomach. All I had was the 2 Gatorades in my vest and about a liter of water on my back, and I just had to keep going. There was no point in stopping and overthinking. I just had to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and so that's what I did. So I make it to Redfern. I'm 23 miles in, new PR, and I'm desperately looking for the guy. I feel like I'm gonna collapse. I just want to rest, and I can't find him. I'm coming down the trail. My parents are hanging out on the right-hand side, and they're like, go down further, they're set up down there. So I keep going, and I run into him, and I'm just spent. I take my shirt off, I take my shorts off, and I just lie face down in the grass. I asked the guys to throw some ice on me, and this was a low point for all of us, honestly. I felt like garbage. They were set up in a bad spot. They were probably 300-400 meters away from their vehicles. So I was asking them for like a towel and the ice and just some other things, and they didn't have it right there. So they had to run to the vehicle, grab what they needed, run back to me, and I'm just laying there, just absolutely miserable. It was at this point I looked over at Devin and I said, Devin, I think we'll probably make the 50-mile mark about 2-3 in the morning. And Devin looked me straight in the eye and goes, if that's what you think right now, you're not finishing this race. And I was so mad and frustrated, but in my heart, I knew he was right. If I took that long to get to the 50-mile mark, there was no way I was going to consistently make it to the cutoff points on the way back. And I started to doubt myself. The 20 minutes spent at that aid station were just absolute chaos, with everybody running around, me feeling like crap, and then trying to get me fueled back up and back on the trail. Okay, so this next section's 6.8.
Correct. Yeah, so you just did 7.9 to hit 23. Next one 6.8 to hit 30.4.
Okay. And we just got a PR, so 6.8, 15-minute
Let's
miles.
go.
That's an hour and a half plus almost another 15, so 145 for the next checkpoint.
Okay.
When do you need to leave here?
45 seconds.
Okay.
I was able to eat most of the mashed potatoes that they made for us, which was huge. I think switching from the ramen honestly saved the whole race, because obviously I wasn't able to eat it, number one, and I think that was the main reason I threw up too. They got my vest filled up and sent me on my way to the next aid station. For me, the next aid station was 7 miles, and I felt really good leaving them at Redfern and going towards Mystic, but I could tell the guys were a little bit worried. They weren't gonna see me for 15 miles. They just saw me at my absolute lowest. They didn't know what to expect 15 miles later, 38 miles into this race. They didn't know how I was gonna be, how I was gonna be feeling, what my mental state was gonna be. So I I think it was kind of wearing on them a little bit, but they needed to take a break. They'd been working hard and they needed to get some food in their stomach so that they could continue to crew me through the night. Leaving Redfern, I was feeling great. I knocked out a 10-minute mile, 13-minute mile, 13-minute mile, 12-minute mile. It was a good downhill stretch, and getting those potatoes in me and getting refueled really did a lot for the pace. I rolled into the Mystic Aid Station about 15 to 20 minutes faster than I expected, so that really helped to raise my spirits. We were now 30 miles into this race. My parents were ready. They had everything ready to go for me. I had potatoes, I had more electrolyte mix, and it was really fun to see my kiddos there. They were coloring some pictures, they were cheering me on. So that was a great aid station. It was refreshing to see my family and have them there to crew for me. We spent about 15 minutes at that aid station, and then we had another 8-mile stretch until I would meet up with the guys again. Had my headlamp, and the sun started to come down, temperature started to drop, and I was able to just keep a nice steady pace from the 30-mile mark up until Rockford when I met the guys at mile 38.
It's 9:12. We're supposedly expecting him around 9:25, 9:30, somewhere in there, if he's on pace. Some uphill here on this section, so we'll see. It's, you know, we're in the dark now. It's dark from here on until obviously the sun comes up, but it's going to be most of the rest of the race is going to be in these conditions.
Yeah, and we got
so.
checkpoint till checkpoint number 8. There's a 6, 7, and then 8 will be the turnaround,
50, yeah.
50 miles, then we'll head back. So.
Yep, and then we start pacing. I'll jump on for the shortest possible length there at the beginning, and then we'll see how it goes. Great, and he's been a champ.
Yeah.
We didn't see him at the last checkpoint, but from what we heard from his family,
Oh, is that him?
he was doing good.
There he is.
Is this the man?
He's here.
I gave the whistle, I don't know if you heard.
We did not hear it.
Dan just came. Checkpoint number 6. What you need? How you feeling?
Shoes off.
Shoes off.
I'll make sure to untie him.
Yep.
Potatoes if we got them.
I was really excited to see the guys again. It had been hours and hours since I had last seen them. They were set up, ready. They looked like pros this time, and it was just exciting to see them. Their faces lit up when they saw how fast I was coming in. I think it put their minds at ease because they hadn't seen me for 15 miles. They didn't know what to expect with me coming into this aid station. So we got more potatoes in me, refilled my vest, and as I was leaving the aid station, I thought, well, you know, my quads are kind of tight. I'm gonna stretch these out real quick. So I started to stretch, and my leg locked up, and I couldn't bend it. I couldn't do anything. Now, it went away pretty quick, but that really set a tone for the rest of the race, because from then on, I was afraid to stretch my quads. They just kept getting tighter and tighter as the race went on, but I didn't want to try to stretch them. I didn't know if I might tear something. I didn't know if they were gonna lock up with a cramp again. And so I just let them keep getting tighter and tighter the rest of the race. And that probably slowed me down a lot, but that fear of cramping or ripping something was in the back of my head. So we just kept moving forward. So leaving mile 38, we had a 6-mile section and then another 6-mile section. Had the headlamp on. It was really cool running at night. I haven't done a lot of that, but those next 12 miles were really uneventful, just kept a good pace. The pace wasn't where I had liked. I definitely dropped off the 24-hour pace, but at this point in the race, I was pretty confident that I was gonna get across that finish line if I was able to just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, quads.
Yeah. Cool. But anything to add now?
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
Not bad. It's chilly, dude. Trying to stay warm.
Next stop is 50.
Yeah, it's insane. We've already hit more than twice as much as I've ever ran.
In less than 12 hours.
Okay, Vegas restart.
2. Yeah, go for it.
You guys got the watch plugged in there?
Blind people watching this video.
I could have gone a little bit faster that last time if my quads weren't so tight.
You look cool.
Of course I do. Tyler bought me this, so thank you, Tyler. Okay, is there anything else? I got goose, I'm full on drink. I
Yep.
think I'm good to go.
All right, man.
I'm gonna walk out of here.
See you in a bit.
50, my friend.
You know, I had that low point at mile 23 where I was like, I don't know guys, maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. I actually crushed that. I had definitely picked up the pace since mile 23. and we rolled into mile 50 at 12:50 in the morning. And I was super excited because it was at this point that Alan was gonna jump in and start pacing me. He was really excited. Devin and Tim were super excited. Like this was the turnaround point. I'd made it 50 miles and all I had to do was make it back.
Very good.
How's it going, Dan?
Good.
Awesome.
I beat my goal there by 10 minutes.
Got it ready.
You want a pacer?
100. Yeah, no, it's just quads and feet.
Warmth-wise, how are you doing?
I'm solid. Everything's good.
Great.
Mentally good. I had both full bottles of water.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm so proud of you. 50 miles.
Yeah.
50 miles, Dan.
10 back now. 10 more, and I've tripled the longest I've ever run.
Yep.
I'm feeling great. I need feet.
Alan and I leave the 50-mile checkpoint. We start out at a pretty quick walk. My quads are really tight at this point. It took us about half mile or so to get going where we could jog a little bit. Once we started jogging, we were making great time. This stretch was downhill and we were moving really good. I got so much energy from Alan jumping in and having that company with me because I'd run so much of this race by myself. Now I say Alan and I were making good time, and we really were right up until the magnesium caught up with me. Magnesium was a supplement that I had done a lot of research on. It was one that I wanted to incorporate into this race because it helps with cramping. And as I've said, cramping was my biggest fear throughout this whole thing. The electrolyte mix that I had some extra magnesium, and then we were taking magnesium supplements on top of that at the aid stations. But the side effect of all that magnesium is diarrhea. So that hit about mile 53. And that was something that I had to deal with over the next 25, 30 miles. It was not fun, it was uncomfortable, but I'll be honest, I would rather deal with that than cramps, as bad as that sounds. So even with that little setback, Alan and I made great time back to the Nahant checkpoint. Tim was there to meet us and he was gonna jump in, Alan was gonna take a break, and Tim had to do this aid station all by himself. Devin had to rest a little bit, so he had gone further on ahead to rest. So Tim set up everything by himself. Alan and I came rolling in. Alan told him exactly what I needed, and we got everything filled up, 8 more potatoes, and we were on our way. Tim and I had a 6-mile stretch ahead of us, and we were ready to tackle it head on. So much so that we left the aid station without my hydration vest.
I looked down, I saw that Dan had left his vest with his hydration and everything he needs here at the checkpoint. So I grabbed it as fast as I could, took off running after him, caught up to him. I said, "Hey, you forget something here?" And it was okay. They weren't that far away. But man, it was a scary moment, and if he would have gone that long without it, I mean, he could have done it, but it would have been probably a lot more challenging.
So with that problem solved, Tim and I continued on our 6-mile stretch. At this point, it's like 3 in the morning. We are out in the middle of nowhere, just 2 guys hiking on this trail, and this super heavy fog rolled in. It was so surreal. It was like just being in like a movie or something. Such a cool experience to share with Tim. So Tim and I reached Rockford, didn't really have any issues, and Alan jumps back in to pace me. Now we have an 8-mile stretch. At this point, it's still dark out, but the sun was gonna rise during this section, and I was super excited to have Alan with me. On the way out, I got to experience these giant railroad tunnels all by myself and walk through them. They're just carved into the rock. It was so neat. So I was excited for Alan to experience that with the sunrise coming up and him getting to see it for the first time. I kept saying to him, like, I can't wait till we get to this spot. You're gonna love it. We're gonna get here and you're just gonna be awestruck. And he was, it was so awesome. So at this point, I was still alternating between a power hike and a slow jog, and Alan was keeping me on top of everything. Still, my quads were so tight and I was avoiding stretching them. The guys had been hitting them with a massage gun at the aid stations, but it honestly wasn't doing that much for me. Alan and I finished that 8-mile section way faster than I expected, and Tim was there waiting for us with open arms, ready to take over for Alan and get me back out on this trail.
Boys, hey, you made it.
I need your help down here.
Yep.
We're gonna get a fresh pair of socks.
Yep.
And when you have Band-Aids in case he's got blisters for me.
Okay.
He's thinking maybe the left heel.
Yeah, sounds about right.
We had a quick turnaround at this aid station. Tim massaged my feet a little bit. We got more potatoes, more electrolytes, and back onto the trail. It was at this point though that my quads became more of an issue. Tim almost had to carry me back to the trail. It was a little bit steeper there than it had been in other places, so I'm pretty much draped over his shoulder as he's guiding me back to the trail. Once we got on the trail, I was able to get off of him, and it took us about a mile to get going. That was one thing I was noticing at the aid stations, was that sitting down and resting was nice, but my legs were getting so tight every time we stopped. So we're 70 miles in, and it was somewhere in this stretch that Tim and I decided we were gonna skip the very last aid station. That last aid station is about 4 miles from the finish. And we made this decision because of my quads, but also it was gonna save us, 10, 15 minutes from stopping and having everything refilled and me sitting down. So we were gonna save the time there, plus we were gonna save time because I wasn't gonna stop and have my legs lock up. Tim and I are almost back to Redfern, 77 miles under my belt at this point. I sent Tim on a little bit ahead to tell those guys what I needed.
Yep.
Super tired.
Okay.
Shirt off.
Do we have one?
Yeah.
They're in the cooler. Rain if you can. There. Pack off. Extra shirt off. Shoes off. Energy drink. Food. Yeah, he's super sleepy, but doing good otherwise.
Okay.
Mentally super solid. So
Yeah.
I was so tired at this point. We were about 24 hours into the race, so everything was just catching up with me at this point. Being on my feet for that long, it's really hard to prepare for. So leaving Redfern, Alan and I have a 8-mile section back to Hill City, and it was during this stretch that we caught up to my friend Derek Thunderhawk. Coming up on Derek, I could tell he was struggling. He was trying to stretch out his calves, and at this point, I had my hand on Alan's shoulder, and he was kind of pushing the pace for me a little bit. And as we got up to Derek, Alan looked at him and goes, "Hey, I got another shoulder, grab on." That was like such a cool moment for me. It really bolstered my spirits at that point, because Alan's there to pace me, to be helping me, and he was willing to offer up his shoulder to somebody that he barely knew to help get him to the next checkpoint. So Derek grabs on, I'm on one shoulder, he's on the other shoulder, and Alan is more or less dragging us forward, keeping a good pace and pushing us probably a little bit harder than we would have been able to go without him. We told Derek, we said, "Hey, we're gonna spend about 15 minutes at this next aid station. If you're able to come in, get out, you can definitely join us for the next stretch too." This Hill City checkpoint was a difficult one for me. I had to backtrack to get to where they were set up. I'm 85 miles in. I'm still doing mentally pretty good, but it was like frustrating to be going one direction and then Tim's like, no, okay, we're set up over here. And so I had to like turn around and walk backwards and step over some chains. I'm having trouble walking at this point, and I'm having to step over chains to make sure I don't fall in a parking lot. They had some shade set up for me between their two vehicles, and they threw some ice on me again, more mashed potatoes. I think this was the last aid station that I ate anything, because I knew 15 miles left in this race, it didn't matter anymore what I was eating. I just needed to stay hydrated. They got all my bottles topped off, and Tim was ready to pace me. We go through that 5-mile stretch, and it was so hot, and I was getting so tired. There were times where I felt like I was gonna fall asleep. So we get to Orville. We've got 10 miles left, and I plop down in the chair, and they just hand me bags of ice, and I'm just sitting there, eyes closed, bags of ice. They're refilling my bottles. I'm not eating anything. And at the time, in my head, I was like, all right, cool, we got 10 miles left. I'm doing really good. This is great. But watching back the footage, I don't know how I finished this race. Looking at myself in that chair, covered in ice, I look absolutely miserable. And I just don't even look like myself, honestly. But like I said, mentally I was good. I was strong. I was like, cool, we got 10 miles left. I get 10 minutes here. Get me up and we'll get on our way. Like I said, just looking back, I don't know how I kept going. Tim and I leave that Orville aid station, and we have 10 miles until the finish. This next 5 miles is uphill, and it was brutal. Sun's beating down on us. We're not going very fast. At this point, I'm not even jogging anymore. I actually tried a couple times, but I couldn't pick my legs up high enough to get to a run, even a slow jog. So we're just hiking as fast as we can. At some points, I've got my hand up on Tim's shoulder. He's wearing a hydration vest and he's got like a loop in that shoulder. So I'm just sticking my finger in there and just grabbing on.
Less than 10 miles to go till Dan gets his 100. We're gonna do it in the sun.
Tim and I made it up that difficult section, 5 miles uphill. We see Alan probably about a quarter mile away from the next aid station. He had run down to us to grab my bottles. So he grabs my bottles, runs back to the aid station and starts filling them up. I'm gonna need as much water as possible to get me to the finish line. So Alan takes off, comes back, gives me those bottles back, and Tim and I just keep going.
We just hit 4 miles until the finish of the 100-mile lean horse here in Custer, South Dakota. And it's happening. My man Dan is getting this done.
We had about 2.5 miles left, and I am getting so tired. I keep telling Tim over and over, I'm like, hey, I'm really sleepy. And he probably got tired of hearing me say that. But I just wanted him to know where I was at and what I was feeling. So just in case anything happened, I wanted him to know what was going on. I've been up for like 36 hours at this point, really close to that. And it's definitely taking its toll on me. We get to 1 mile left and my watch dies, which isn't the end of the world. Like we know we've got a mile left, but it was just still really frustrating. Like, oh, of course my watch dies now. They couldn't have made it 1 more mile. But so I'm like, I'm holding on to Tim, and it had to be every few steps. I'm like, Tim, how much further we got? Tim, how much do you think? It's less than a mile, but like how much? We just keep walking. And we come to this clearing, and to our left was the track. And my spirits just instantly lifted. Like, there it is. I just got to make it to that track and do 200 meters on the track. My family, my kids are going to be waiting for me. It was such a cool moment to be like, there it is. I just got to get there. So Tim and I follow the signs. We get off the trail. We follow these arrows to the track, and Tim just has a few words of encouragement for me before he heads to the finish line to record. And I do that last stretch by myself. I'm coming around the final corner. I can see my kids, I can see my family, and I try to push. Like, I give it everything I got that last like 25 meters. And I cross the finish line, and Eli and Isabel are right there, and I just hug them, and I'm just draped over top of them. And I'm feeling so many emotions. I'm so happy, and I feel like I've accomplished something. And everybody's there. My parents are there, Tim's there, Devin's there, Alan's there, and they're all there for me. And as happy as I was for myself for having gotten across that finish line, I was happy for everybody who was there and who was involved, because it definitely took all of us. It was a group effort, and I don't think I could have done it without them. They give me my medal, they walk me off, they've got a chair set up off to the side for me, and I just sit there. I've got this medal, my kids are there, and they're telling me how good I did, and I'm just bawling my eyes out. And it was just a release of happiness and everything I had just gone through over the last 30 hours. It took me 30 hours and 46 minutes of just putting one foot in front of the other. And honestly, it took a year of putting one foot in front of the other. The planning and the training and everything that led up to me crossing that finish line. It was that day, but it was the whole year leading up to it as well, coming together. I feel so blessed that I was able to have those people there with me, and that I mean enough to them that they would take almost a week out of their life to come and help me chase my dream, for really nothing in return other than to be a part of it. At this point, I don't see myself doing another ultra marathon, but we're only a week and a half out, not even. So who knows, maybe someday I'll lace him up and do another one. I'm trying to get Tim to do one. I'd love to pace him. He's just crazy enough that I think I can convince him to sign up for one. So crossing that finish line and hugging my kids, I want them to see me do hard things. I want them to know that if you work hard and put in the time and the effort, that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. All right, Scott, I think that's it. Let's go look up some races for me and you.